Welcome to the hopefully not unlucky 13th episode of Anycast, where we talk about anything that's going on, mainly sports, and boys, there are a lot to dive into with the sports. Let's start with the race last night. For those who didn't watch, it was the Darlington Throwback Weekend race, and that means you're going to see a bunch of throwback schemes. But of course, you already know where we're going with this. My man Jimmy Johnson. Yes, you've already probably seen his paint scheme. But did you see what else he wore prior to the race? He also wore Richard Petty's iconic hat, Dale Earnhardt's iconic shades, and let's talk about that fire suit. Because on one side, it was the Intimidator, and on the other side, it was Richard Petty. I mean, you cannot get more throwbacky than that. And then his helmet with the piece de resistance. It basically was the same as his car design. You had Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt's iconic colors in that helmet. I tell you what, he may not have won the race. Hell, he didn't even finish in the top 10. But by golly, did he dominate the throwback stuff. Now, about the race itself. Because there was a race that was going on. Chase Elliott, who donned one of the many Jimmy Johnson throwbacks, he did the 09 rendition of Johnson's scheme. You probably remember as well that Bowman had the 06 version, and William Byron paid tribute to Johnson's 2013 All-Star race. Makes sense because it's basically the reverse colors of his Liberty University scheme. So you knew that. Denny Hamlin also had an awesome paint scheme. He paid tribute to when Federal Express, which was the longer version of FedEx, began in 1973 and did the number font of Cale Yarborough, which I thought was really cool. Kyle Busch did Elliott Sadler's old M&M's paint scheme, which basically the only change is he changed the number font to reflect Elliott Sadler's old number font. Otherwise, it's basically the same M&M's car as you've seen. I thought Austin Dillon did a great job with his Junior Johnson throwback scheme. And by the way, he was in the running for the win, as was Kevin Harvick in that iconic Busch scheme. And by golly, there were a lot of really good, awesome, classic throwback schemes. But let's get to the race itself. Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott dominated the race. And oh, by the way, let's talk about Martin Truex Jr.'s scheme too. He threw back to when he was with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and DEI and those days. And so his paint scheme kind of resembled that. But in any case, he and Chase Elliott dominated this race. Between the two of them, miles and away led the most laps. And we're actually in a battle for the win until we had a little problem with space. Chase Elliott, and I'm going to try to defend Truex a little bit because this would not have happened if Chase Elliott didn't decide to go down low when the high side was working well for him. But he decided to go to low just to try something out, see if, according to him, he wanted to make sure that nothing changed on the low side. In doing so, that opened the door for Truex to take the lead, and then he was just about to clear him, except he didn't really clear him, and they took each other out. Now, they both didn't wreck or anything. They kept running for a few more laps before they realized, hey, we got to go to the pits. So eventually, they did knock themselves out, which, of course, was the only way Kevin Harvick was going to win this race, because when you know it, he wins this race. Austin Dillon made a late surge, and had there been another lap, that would have been interesting because he almost got to Harvick at the end there. But Harvick was able to hang on for a win that he did not see coming because, quite frankly, he had no chance of winning this race except for when the two leaders took each other out. Now, you know me, as a Hendrick fan, I was not thrilled about that because, once again, Chase Elliott got knocked out. It's like, oh, yeah. How many times do we have to go through this episode? It's like a rerun with Chase Elliott. And it always seems to be the Gibbs car. Now, I'm not trying to backlash Gibbs fans, but it seems like every time Elliott has a chance to win and it gets snatched from him, it seems coincidental that a Gibbs car seems to get in the way every time, don't you think? Just saying. But I am happy for Kevin Harvick. He got the win. Here's the one thing I'm going to take out of this race, though. It's after Harvick won. And you're probably going to see this all over Twitter and Facebook and all the social medias. There was a fan who wore a Jimmy John's Kevin Harvick hat and a Kevin Harvick t-shirt that had the same design as my William Byron t-shirt. He grabbed the checker flag. He was going to be giving it to Kevin Harvick when he came down again to grab it. Harvick's like, no, 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 no. You keep it. Because he noticed that he was wearing Kevin Harvick gear, so he let the kid keep the checkered flag. How awesome is that? I mean, that is, if that does not sum up Kevin Harvick in a nutshell, I don't know what is. I have mad respect for him for that, because that's an awesome moment that kid is going to cherish for the rest of his life. And so, Kevin Harvick, you are a true icon. You are awesome. I don't like the fact that you won at the expense of my guy Chase Elliott getting knocked out, but I appreciate what you do. Now, NASCAR wasn't the only thing that was on this Labor Day weekend. We actually had some good college football games. Well, let's backtrack. We had some college football games. They were not really that good, except for the fact that Army just trounced Middle Tennessee State 42-0. So unless you're a Blue Raider fan, you're enjoying that one. But quite frankly, there weren't really that many good games on. And that's not surprising because, again, with all these conferences and the limitations that they have as a result of the pandemic, but at least we had some kind of football. Not great football, but some kind of football. And it wraps up tonight with BYU and Navy. That's your big-time marquee Labor Day weekend capper football game. So, again, tells you the state that we're in right now with the pandemic. But again, we should be happy that at least we have some kind of football. It's not great, but it could be worse. Now, speaking of football, the NFL season kicks off on Thursday. I had my fantasy football draft. I am going to confess I had a miserable season last year. 5-9, tied for the worst record in my league. But I am confident that I will bounce back, especially when I have the likes of Christian McCaffrey on my side. I do NFL.com's fantasy football. I've done that since 2011 with the exception of 1 year where I took off, and then I've done it every year other than that since 2011. I feel really confident about my lineup. And let me know what you think and let me know what your lineups look like if you're doing fantasy football. But here's what I went. I went Christian McCaffrey because you know he's going to go number one. I mean, come on. You got to get an all-purpose running back. Nowadays, they are going to get you a ton of points. Then I went and got DeAndre Hopkins, which was an unbelievable steal at pick number 20. Because, again, the way we did it is we do it in snake order. I did it by the inverse order of the standings, and then it's snake order. So we keep rotating around and around and around. So you have the opportunity to go back-to-back, which is what I did. DeAndre Hopkins, Aaron Jones, who did me good last year, Darren Waller, who might be one of the best tight ends in the business, Dak Prescott at quarterback. And then I got Jack Doyle at tight end. I eventually got Tom Brady at quarterback. Yes, Brady lovers will appreciate me for that. The Vikings defense, and then to give myself some flexibility on the bench, Golden Tate, Sony Michel, John Brown, Tevin Coleman for my last 4 picks in the draft. I feel really good about my lineup. Now, obviously, there's going to be some changes throughout the course of the season, as you would anticipate with fantasy football. You're going to get some waiver moves to try to beef up your lineup and make it look strong. But on paper, I may have myself a winning combination. Knowing my luck, we'll see. But let me know what you think on my lineup. But going back to the football itself, we got the Chiefs and the Texans to kick off the season. Expect a lot of points in that one because you know Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to have their way with their high-powered offense, and Houston will be able to muster up some points as well. I think this is going to be an interesting season. There's a lot of really good teams in the NFC. I can't tell you how many there are. Just about everybody except for the Washington football team and the Giants and the Lions and maybe the Bears are going to have a really good chance to have a pretty good season because that's how many good teams we have in the NFC. On the AFC, well, you get the Chiefs and the Ravens. They're probably going to be your 2 front runners. Buffalo looks like they could be a solid team. Maybe New England can still do all right with Cam Newton. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that remains to be up in the air. Pittsburgh, if they can get something out of Ben Roethlisberger, I think has a chance because with pathetic, and I'm putting it lightly as best I can, with pathetic QB play, they still managed to finish 8-8. So you can only imagine how good they're going to be if they can get something out of Ben Roethlisberger. So definitely watch out for them. Titans, who got to the AFC title game last year, I think will be a threat because you got Derrick Henry pounding the rock with a rock-solid defense. I think Tennessee's going to be a dark horse again in the AFC. I'd watch out for them. Indianapolis could be decent. Houston, I think, could be pretty good. So, I mean, you've got some decent teams in the AFC, but they're not as stacked as, say, the NFC. So, I think this is going to be a very interesting season, especially given what is unfolded with the MLB. And the NFL is basically doing the same thing. Not going to have that many spectators, if any, but they're not going to have a bubble either. So, I think that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to unfold. So, that's definitely something to pay attention to. I would imagine this first week, you're going to feel like you're watching a preseason because, again, with no preseason this year due to the pandemic, this basically could be like their preseason. So expect a lot of sloppiness, but I think that's going to be interesting to watch for sure. The MLB definitely is hitting the home stretch now, and I tell you what, the AL Central looks like they're going to have some really good contenders. Right now, as we sit this morning, the White Sox, who get to enjoy Labor Day off like most of us, lead the division with a mark of 26-15. Definitely did not see that coming. The Indians and the Twins are right on their heels. It looks like those two teams are definitely going to be making the playoffs, especially with this expanded playoffs. But how about them Yankees? I'm going to grill the Yankees because, we're going to have a great season with all this money. Guess what? When your players get hurt and you have no one to back them up, that's why you're 21-19 and in third place in a division that going into the season, many thought they were going to run away with. And now they're going to be fortunate to make a push in the playoffs if they do get healthy. And again, that's the product that we get as a result of the pandemic. We force their players back in. They don't get the rep they need. And look what happens. Injuries. But I relish at the fact, I prospect at the fact, I relish that the Yankees are only 2 games above 500 and we've got a third of the season to go. They could possibly, if they don't get their act together, although I have a feeling they might, could finish with a losing record. And they may still make the playoffs because that's how this format is. The Rays and the Blue Jays have definitely surprised people. They are no doubt the surprise teams in the American League. Oakland's kind of fallen off a bit. Houston had made a push to get back at Oakland, but they've slumped again. And so now they're 3.5 back, and they too are only 21-19 with a third of their season to go. However, in the NL side, things are starting to get interesting. The Cubbies are reeling, and they just lost 3 straight to the Redbirds, and those two finish up their series today. And the Cardinals are now a game and a half out of first. They still got a lot of games they got to make up because they've only played 32 games to this point. Everybody else is at the 40-game mark just about. So, yeah, there's still a lot to be decided. But here's the thing. You got to watch out for the Cardinals. They always are a sneaky team if they make the playoffs. And by golly, if they get in this year, you got to watch out for them. But as it stands right now, I got to think the Dodgers are miles ahead of everybody else in that league. The problem is I don't trust the Dodgers in the playoffs because they are the biggest choke artists when it comes to postseason play. They're one of those teams that, regular season, great, not so much in the postseason. So until they go deep and impress me, then we'll talk. But there's some good teams in there. The Braves have been doing well. Philly was starting to get on a roll. They kind of faltered back a little bit. The Padres look like they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. They if you did not see what they did at the trade deadline, by golly, are they pushing for now? Because they got Clevenger from the Indians, and they got Mitch Moreland to beef up their offense. I tell you what, they are going to be the biggest threat to the Dodgers in the postseason. I think those are going to be the 2 teams to watch out for. Of course, the Cardinals in my book are going to be one to watch out for too. So, if we were to predict the World Series right now, that remains up in the air. At this point, I still think it's going to be Oakland and LA. Can you say 1988 all over again? Because I feel like that's the 2 teams right now. Now, not counting my Twins out by any means necessary. They've been dealing with injuries themselves. I think if the Twins can get healthy again, they're a team to watch out for because they have both the pitching and the offense that'll win them games. They've had their lulls here and there, which is what you get with most of these teams. But I think they're going to be a team to watch out for because they play in the toughest division in baseball. And by golly, they're one of the more solid teams in baseball. So I think that's something to watch out for as we hit the home stretch. We're also hitting the home stretch with the Stanley Cup playoffs. We've officially gotten to the conference finals. I don't think anybody could have predicted Lightning versus Islanders in the East, and then Dallas and Vegas in the West. I definitely didn't see that coming. Well, Vegas I could see coming, but I definitely did not see Dallas getting all the way to the conference finals. So kudos to them and their effort. Tampa Bay, I'm telling you, this is like reliving the Virginia men's basketball story all over again. Because for those who forgot, last year the Lightning won 62 games and the President's Trophy. They were the runaway favorites to win the Cup last year. And not only did they not win it, they got swept in the first round by the Blue Jackets. Embarrassing, to say the least. But they have come back. They have looked like a much tougher team, a much different team, a much more physical team than last year. And as a result, they have made it all the way to the conference finals to face the Islanders, another tough, grinded-out team that took out the top-seeded Flyers, and thus completely sealed my bracket's fate as if it wasn't sealed up already by Vancouver eliminating my champs, who I had repeating. So there you go. Shows what I know. Even the gray ones have to struggle, believe me. So if we're going to predict the Cup finals at this point, I think it's going to be Vegas and the Lightning. I just got a feeling those two have been the most complete teams in this year's playoffs. And I think those are going to be two teams that are going to be duking it out for Lord Stanley's Cup. Maybe wrong, because Dallas and the Islanders will be worthy of that, but we'll see. Dallas at least has already gotten a leg up with their win last night in the conference finals, so they got a one-game lead. We'll see how that unfolds. And then in the NBA, we are finally into the second round. Just when you think you're about to count out the champs in that league, Toronto's won 2 in a row to even that series up with Boston. They got a pivotal Game 5 tonight. The Bucks staved off elimination yesterday and avoided an embarrassing sweep at the hands of the Heat. Although I don't know how far they're going to be able to go, especially if the Greek Freak is going to miss some time. He was knocked out of yesterday's game because of an ankle injury. So he missed the rest of that game, but the Bucks were able to find a way to persevere and win. If they can have that type of effort, maybe they can prolong the inevitable, but I still think the Bucks are going to get ousted at some point by the Heat. So we'll see how that unfolds. On the West side, you're thinking it may be an all-LA Western Conference Finals, but Denver and Houston might have something to say about that, although the Lakers did bounce back last night and win. Denver came up huge in their Game 2, so their Game 3 is tonight. That's a pivotal Game 3, so we'll see how that unfolds. Right now, as it stands, I got to think it's going to be Miami, and, well, I still think Boston is the better team at this point, but we'll see how the champs perform. I could see either or at this point, not surprising against Miami, and then I think it's still going to be the two LA teams duking it out in the West. But, again, a lot of basketball to be played, so we'll see what happens there. And so that pretty much is the wrap on what's going on in sports. So definitely enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Do it safe. Do it wisely. If you're going out and about, keep your social distancing and wear a mask, please. We do not want a repeat of Memorial Day and 4th of July. I cannot stress that enough. So have a safe and happy Labor Day off. And if you're working, I hope you enjoy yourself a little bit and definitely take advantage of those hours. So take care, guys, and see you soon.